Spectator mode is a Java Edition exclusive feature which allows you to disable block collision and turn invisible. This effectively makes you a spectator in your own world, and it's known as Game Mode 3 in the game files because of the fact that Game Mode 0 is survival, Game Mode 1 is creative, and Game Mode 2 is adventure. Therefore, if you type /Game Mode 3 on the Bedrock version of the game, you get nothing because there is no spectator mode. However, if you're playing the latest preview or beta, for whatever reason, there is a Game Mode 6 which has been added, and as you can see, when you type it in, it says set own game mode to %createworld.gamemode.spectator, effectively telling us that there is a spectator mode which was never mentioned anywhere on the changelog, but exists here in the real game. This makes it a secret feature, and maybe tells us they're adding spectator to 1.19, because as you can see, it's fully accessible here in the beta and preview versions. This is incredibly interesting, and I'm sure you have a ton of questions. Today, I want to answer all of those, and most of which, by the way, is going to come down to like, so there's spectator mode on Bedrock, but it's not fully accessible. Also, this is what happens when you get the darkness and night vision effect at the same time. It's very wacky, but there's spectator mode on Bedrock and it's not fully accessible. What's the scoop with why and how? And I feel like we should explain first of all the fact that yes, secret features do exist in the Bedrock version of the game, but they are very, very rare. Sometimes they add a feature to the game that they did intend to, but they forgot to put on the changelog. The last example of this was shield bashing. If you attack someone with a shield, they can, with an axe, you can disable their shield. It's a really cool little feature they added, and it was intentional, but not on the changelog, but it's usually very infrequent because there's whole teams of people documenting every single feature and change they make to a beta, so leaving features off the changelog is just not as common as it used to be in the console edition days. So this isn't an intentional secret feature because Game Mode 6 is quite a big deal, and the fact that it's called should I show you again? It's called %createworld.screen.gamemode.spectator tells us this is clearly not finished either, and so what I think is the most likely outcome is they added this, to make the developers time with the betas easier, because they are playing around with caves. Have you heard of the new ancient cities coming in this update? They change and also the deep dark biome. They change caves in quite a serious way, and so developers probably just wanted to play around with the proper finished build versions, but also be able to look at how these caves look without having to do the annoying creative mode thing of like, oh, I'm breaking through walls and spamming away stuff. Spectator mode just works really, really, really well for that. So spectator mode was almost certainly added as a mistake and not an intentional secret feature, but what does that really mean? I think the biggest and saddest thing is that probably means that it's not here to stay, because if you look at spectator mode, it might seem like it's doing the biggest part of the job because, look, we can fly through walls. That's the most important thing that any YouTuber or any average Minecraft player cares about, but it's not the full spec of the game mode, if you forgive the fact that whatever. If you forgive that, it's not the full spec of the game mode, and let me explain to you why. Reason number one is the fact that even though this is spectator mode, we're not invisible. If you're spectating and you're visible to people, at the very least you should be invisible, I believe is how servers do it, but you shouldn't be visible because you're spectating, you're not influencing things, and that's a relatively small thing that's probably very easy to fix. The second one is the fact that we just disable our hotbar. So if we go to game mode 5, which is default game mode, you can see this is what creative looks like. We have a hotbar, we can place things, we can ignore things and not be hit by damage, but the difference with spectator mode is the fact that there is no hotbar whatsoever, which is not how it works on Java. There's meant to be various spectate options that you have available to yourself. Also, even though there is no hotbar, we can still hold items. If we were holding items in creative or survival mode, they'll follow through with us, which doesn't really make a whole ton of sense, does it? If you think about it, in my opinion. Also, as you can see, here's something really interesting. I thought this was a bug, but apparently it's not. One of the weird bugs of this game mode that I just discovered right now is the fact that if you go to Spectator from Survival, which is Game Mode 0, you'll see that we will not be able to fly in any form. If we try to go upwards, we have to hit the, we hit A button twice, we hit spacebar twice. You can only fly up by slowly jutting up like this. However, if you go from Game Mode 1 to Game Mode 6, which is, it shouldn't make a big difference which game mode you switch from, then you can actually fly around freely. Okay, no you can't. Maybe it's the fact that we were on a solid block before. Yeah, let's try that. So we'll go to Game Mode 5 into Game Mode 6. Yeah, it's when you're on a solid block, because it disables our flying. So we go from a solid block into this, we keep our flying ability. The game mode that you switch into another game mode from should not affect how that game mode works. That's a pretty clear bug, but also there are all sorts of other features that you probably wouldn't expect to be the way they are. Like, for instance, chests. Should you be able to access them? I feel as though we should. Why can we not access them? Because, you know, spectator mode is not a fully fleshed out game mode, sadly. It seems as though it is instead just Minecraft, but with everything disabled, including collision detection, which is great because it does allow you to go and look between walls and see the amazing cave generation, like, oh wow, there's big stuff happening here. However, a lot of things that you would expect as far as a spectator don't work truly. This is a fun one I learned from a friend of the channel, Prow. As you can see, if we set a tripwire hook right here, you can trip this off in creative or survival because that's how tripwire hooks work. As you can see, that's how that goes. However, if we were a spectator, you should not be able to influence the game in any real way. But as you can see, tripwire hooks don't care about that. And so you could set off complex redstone or traps or anything else like that. I imagine this also means that if we have, say, a pressure plate or something, then we might be able to detonate that too. Actually, you know, I'm curious. Let's find out together. So another issue is the fact that we're not truly spectating. If we go from this to this, and then step off the pressure plate, and then step back on. Okay, so here's the easy way to show you. As you can see, tripwire hooks do activate, but pressure plates, for whatever reason, actually do not. So they have worked out some of the features, but not all of the features. It is not a complete game mode. This is an inconsistency, I guess we could say, because you could argue that spectators should be able to trigger traps and stuff, but then why can't they trigger pressure plates and buttons and open chests and do all the other sorts of crazy things? And the answer is, well, there isn't too much logic in that one, is there? The answer is that Game Mode 6 doesn't seem like it is a fully fleshed out game mode, but instead, it seems as though it's a development feature that was left in the finished build by a mistake. It is here because of an accident somewhere along the line where maybe a development piece of code got mixed with a regular piece of code. But that does raise the question that we should be asking again, which is, so why is spectator mode? Why is this really awesome option that is so handy for people looking at seeds? It's so handy for people who want to see what's below their world while they're making some creative build that relies on tick chunks. Why is this really cool world option that could make the multiplayer experience better even? Why is this cool world option not here on Bedrock? Why is it that this is just a weird little buggy? Also, look at the camera, by the way. It has no idea how to deal with the fact that we're inside of a block. So this is how the camera should work, by the way. Also, we're activating skulks even though we're in even though we're in spectator. We don't exist, but we're still activating these blocks over and over again. So that's flaw number 4. But flaw number 5 is the fact that, yeah, the camera doesn't work because it doesn't know how solid blocks interact with you, the player, and so it just assumes that you're right here in a kind of frustrating, annoying way. So it's not a fully put together game mode, and it's clearly here as an accident. But now comes the question, why is this an accident and not a fully fledged feature? Why are we not seeing spectator mode on Bedrock? I think this is a great shame because when you look at the Java edition, they not only have spectator mode, but they also have hardcore mode, which is exclusive to that version of the game, meaning that 2 of the 5 game modes that Minecraft has, I mean, hardcore's kind of pushing it as the game mode, but still, 2/5 of the gameplay experience that are available on the Java edition aren't here on Bedrock, which is in great contrast to the fact that they've mentioned time and time again, they want full parity. They want the ability to have every feature that is on one version eventually on the other. So what's the deal with this? There are much harder questions to answer about, well, what do you do about features that seem like they're a bug on one version but really enable creativity, like the top of the nether and stuff like that? There are all sorts of questions like that do come up and they're important, but they're hard to answer. They might take some years, but this is a feature that no one's questioning, like, ooh, do we need spectator on Bedrock? No, the moment you saw spectator mode was here on Bedrock, you probably thought, oh wow, that is really cool. Look at the possibilities. You can find stuff like this that you'd almost never find otherwise. It's really, really fun for that reason. And I think it is something that loads of not only content creators, people looking around seeds, but also just people who are working on creative builds who want to be able to see things would like. And so why don't we have it? And the answer, I think, sadly comes down to the same thing of the development time to add it on Java was probably relatively low. They could add a feature to the game that didn't really do much, and then over time they slowly added those things there as it made sense. But now that the Bedrock Edition has to add spectator mode, they need to do it all in one big blob. They need to literally build a game mode from scratch effectively and add it all into Minecraft at the same time. It's not just enough that you can fly through blocks of no block collision, you need to also be invisible and have a hotbar with different features that you can play around with. And also, as well as that, you need to, there's all, you need to be able to interact with chests, but not, you can look at them, but not actually do things. You can, Spectator mode on Java also has the feature where you can become a mob temporarily, which you can't here on Bedrock. I can't become a glow squid. And so when you add all of these different weird things together, it makes sense that it's hard for them to start on something like that. It'd be much, much easier for them to look at something like, okay, why are trees different between platforms? And then they could start to address that as an alternative, right? And so yeah, when you start to, why is it that these structures spawn in slightly different places? Like looking at these sort of issues or whatever other tiny parity issue, or honestly, not even parity issue, why don't they, you would rather them spend their time, I'm sure, on working on bringing new wildlife to the birch forest like they're going to do for the wild update, or the mangrove tree, or whatever else it is that you care about. Look at this cave, it's got grass in it because it's that high up that just kind of exists. All of these things are things that I'm sure that you would want in theory and probably in some amount of practice, but that don't exist because if they're busy working on this game mode, it's not happening. Even if you just look at the fact that, yeah, there's two game modes missing from Bedrock, right? There's Hardcore and there's Spectator. I think almost everyone would say, yeah, Spectator is significantly more important to me. By the way, here's another weird one. Look at the drip leaf. The drip leaf registers me as having stood on it, despite the fact that I'm clearly not meant to be here. And so, yeah, it's a broken game mode. But our question now is not, is it a broken game mode? It's why is there this broken game mode that we know for a fact with almost certainty they're just going to remove in a future beta and preview. This isn't going to be accessible to everyone. And that comes down to the question, should you get features in Minecraft that are unfinished, incomplete, and they can work on later? Or is Minecraft at the level of the game now where they can only add features that are fully complete and fleshed out? I would argue, I mean, if you look at the response to the Caves and Cliffs update, we as a community do have an expectation that, yeah, you can't just add something and say, yeah, and in a year we'll fix it maybe. That's not what people are excited for. Adding a ton of blocks to the game and saying, we'll add the ways to, actually use them in 6 months' time is not something that people were overly keen on. Look at this, by the way. Look at this, this ancient city has lava, like I guess a lava aquifer just surrounding the portal. Very fascinating. But yeah, these are, like the expectation is a lot higher. And so it means that when you have a team which works in a lot of small units, it can be hard to work on a big daunting feature. However, again, that seems like an organizational issue that they need to fix if they want to create true parity. There are some features that are hard to add from the Java edition that at some point need to be started, and some point probably needs to be, given that the Bedrock guarantee of getting all the features from console and getting as many of the features from Java was made so many years ago now, it feels as though these are the sorts of issues that need to be worked on. But, something, there was a pandemic, something, obviously, it doesn't matter how many people they hire. You need good people. You don't just need more manpower and more resources for a thing. And maybe that's the issue that Minecraft has, is that, well, it sounds, also look at this, we can see from the inside of the lava that underneath the lava there's these. See, this is a cool thing to have as a player that you wouldn't realize otherwise, because you're not going to drain a whole pit of lava, unless you're me. But, this is what Spectator mode would make possible, and we can talk endlessly about, well, how do you make something good? Do you have a lot of people throwing a lot of time at the thing, or do you find the right specific people? And ultimately, as players, it's not really our duty to know the answers to this question. All we can say as players is we would probably like hardcore mode, and Spectator mode would also be real cool. How about a couple of game modes, huh? But I think there are much harder ways to actually answer how and when does this get added? How and when can you actually expect these sorts of things? And also, even then, people would say, well, why are we getting a new game mode that 1% of players, maybe less, use when there are all sorts of bugs that affect people every single day? And because of this limited resource, infinite demands thing, working out what Minecraft people do is probably a task that they're working on with some high priority. However, I say that no, this is why it's important to, in response to this almost inevitable removing of Spectator mode, we say, actually, we would really like Spectator mode. Or, you be honest with me if this is your opinion, or if you don't care about Spectator mode, say, yeah, actually, do I really want to spectate my world? Am I getting benefit from flying around while being invisible and flying through blocks? If you're not playing creative and on non-super flat worlds, then probably not, right? Like, you don't really need this in that sense of the word. And yeah, anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Hope it was a fun little Monday thing. I am still very curious as to what they come up with for the rest of the Wild update. You know, it's interesting that we kind of like now know that it's going to be like a summerish update. They've only confirmed 2022, but they're gearing up clearly for a release soon. And so I'm very fascinated to see what they do over the next few months of development. It probably won't include Spectator mode, but I'm excited whatever it does bring. And yeah, I'll be checking out the betas. I don't always cover betas on this channel because I think it's important just to focus on the ones that have the features that are worth you know, mentioning and going over. But I hope you'll enjoy this video. If you did, like it, favorite, subscribe. And yeah, the Let's Play will be out slightly later this week. So if you're excited for that, don't worry, it's coming soon. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Ooh, I went invisible for a second there. Oh, look at that. Wait. What just happened there? Why did I turn it? Am I going crazy? Was I just invisible? Huh. Well, that is odd, isn't it? Huh. Okay, so if you fly backwards while crouching, you might turn invisible. What is causing that? Okay, yeah, so fun fact, if you're playing Spectator mode and you fly backwards, you turn invisible for a few seconds at a time. But only from the first-person camera. The third-person camera. You know, this makes even less sense. What is this video? What is this game mode, honestly? I hope you all enjoyed. Have a good day. Goodbye. Is that ice really, like, specifically on those chunk boundaries? Yeah, the biome generation is a little bit broken right now. Oh, this is cool. It's just the ice hasn't generated. Never mind. That's fun. Kind of cool to watch, right? Okay. This is a video that has to end at some point.